Well, hey, it's going to be another year. It'll be 30 years now, right? 30 years without a Stanley Cup for the Vancouver Canucks. The last time they won was a couple months after, or a couple of weeks after I was born.
For
So
Canada, for a Canadian franchise. You just said the Canucks. They have never won a cup.
don't worry about that. Yeah, the a Canadian team winning the Stanley Cup. It's been 30 years. What do you think?
What do I think? I think that there's not much to be said. Like, I don't know. Like, what do you say, Chris? Who's the next one? It's not Toronto. I got a lot to say about Toronto, and I'm saving that for a second here. Edmonton? Is it going to be Edmonton? Probably not going to be the Canucks. Might it be the Canucks? We're seeing, hey, retooling works. Look at the Dallas Stars. Look at the Dallas Stars. They're retooled. It works. Retooling works, folks. So, who's the next Cup winner? Who is Canada's next Cup winner? Because I know there was people saying after the 2020 playoffs when the Canucks were, very close to making the Western Conference final in the bubble there, people said, "Oh, it's the Canucks. The Canucks are going to be the next team to win the cup for Canada." Not going to be them. It's not going to be them probably, but who's it going to be, Chris? Like,
Well,
who is it going to
yeah,
be?
I wouldn't bet against Connor McDavid winning a Stanley Cup, right? I think he's that good. I think he's also at probably, in the next few years here are going to be the best times of his career, probably when give him a chance to do that. So I'd probably go with the Oilers. I think having the best player in the world and having the best complementary player in the world in Leon Draisaitl, who, at times can make an argument that he's the best player in the world. But when you have those two players, I really think that's probably the team I would be going with. But it's not really another Canadian team that gets me that excited. Toronto's going to look. I don't know. I wonder if Toronto's going to look very different. I know you want to dive into them, so I'll let you handle the Toronto talk. But with the Oilers, I think that's my team. I think they're missing a couple of critical pieces to really getting over the hump of being able to be a team that represents the Western Conference. I don't think they're at that level. I think at times they are. Like we talked about it earlier in the playoffs. How good is Edmonton when they're on their game? Like there's nobody that can compete with them. You watch them score 3 goals in a minute and a half, and you're just like, okay, like not a lot of other teams would be able to do that. Not a lot of other teams have as high of a potential as the Edmonton Oilers do. They just seem to struggle to get their, to reach their potential. It's just such a difficult thing to do. And it seems like it's a different scenario in the playoffs as well, where you can reach your potential in the regular season. When you're over 82 games and it's, some games don't mean as much as the others, you can get by with a team that's that talented like the Oilers. It just feels like they're missing something that is going to help them in the playoffs. Like I know Connor McDavid's going to help you in the playoffs. I know Leon Draisaitl is going to help you in the playoffs. But when those guys don't show up and put up 3-point games, I don't think they have enough to get them over the hump. And I think that's the big difference is when you look at something like listen, the Kraken. I know they just got eliminated, but the way that they play, it doesn't rely on 2 players. It doesn't rely on 5 players. It relies on the whole team. And I don't think you can fully invest in that and say, hey, like, if we have the best 3rd and 4th line in the NHL, we're going to win the Stanley Cup. Like, it's not that far bent that way, but it's more about the team structure of it, of just how you are going to be able to compete in 7-game series. It's such a different look than how you are in an 82-game year. That's why I don't think the standings mean a ton. It really is just about getting there to the playoffs for a lot of these teams. And I think Florida is a good example of that. Vegas is another good example of that. And then it's all about hot goaltending at a time. And I think Edmonton's just missing too many of the pieces where I'm not confident that they're going to get hot goaltending at the right time. I'm not confident that their bottom 6 is going to be able to carry them for a game when they really need it and the big guys are getting shut down. I'm not even confident that their top end guys are going to be able to overcome a true shutdown line. And I think that was a huge example of what just happened to the Oilers in this most recent playoff series. Like, you could shut down the McDavid line and it's over. There is nothing that they're going to follow up with that after. And, the fact that they got McDavid shut down, they got Draisaitl shut down, it was a very tough uphill battle for the Oilers. And I think that's because they didn't have enough horsepower to kind of push them over the top from the bottom end of their lineup.
Ultimately, though, who cares? Like, that's what I keep
Yeah.
coming back to is I see this discourse of, oh, it's been this many years since the Canadian team's won. This is horrible. It's like, really? Why? Like, do you feel some sense of pride being Canadian if a Canadian team wins it? Like, that's not happening in the States. I'll tell you that right now. And Karan in the chat, the YouTube live chat said, does anyone actually care about Canada winning a cup? I
Yeah.
only care about the Canucks. Like, think about what we're talking about. We're like, oh, could the Leafs do it? Could the Oilers do it? Who cares?
I
Who
don't
cares?
care.
There are
I
other
don't know.
teams. Like, yeah, like I don't understand this, and I understand if you're a Sportsnet or you're, in the national media, I get it. You want that Canadian team to win, I get it. But for us, who cares? Like, and the casual sports fan, who cares? That I see this all the time, and it's been a talking point, obviously, since we were kids, right, and started watching hockey. Was, oh, a Canadian team hasn't won it. A Canadian team hasn't won it. When's a Canadian team gonna win it? Who cares? Like, who cares? You want your team to win it. That's how sports works. Like, I don't care. Say I'm a Mariners fan. I don't care if another AL West team doesn't win the World Series. Like, I don't care. I want the Mariners to win it. You know what I mean? Like, that's how sports works. This idea that people should care that, it's won by a Canadian team, it's ridiculous. I don't even know why we're talking about it. This is because I don't look at
Well,
outlines and help plan shows. But True Sight with a good point, and this is always the other point that always gets brought up, is aren't most cup winners on US teams made up predominantly by Canadian players? The answer is yeah. Canada turns out the
sure.
best talent. I understand it if it's the Olympics or whatever, the international stage, and you're rooting for Canada, for sure. That's totally different. But to say, like, oh, I really hope the Maple Leafs or the Oilers end Canada's drought. Why? Who cares? That's also ending the Oilers and the Leafs drought, which is way funnier than the fact that a Canadian team hasn't won the cup in that many years.